do we have here? So this van had already been carpeted by the previous owner, so wanted some windows in here and in the back. So I've cut it out, and what you saw from the other side and what you can see on these doors is that I've used a decent hole cutter. Like, I've got a Bosch and it goes through it really well. Bosch hole cutter in each of the corners. So I've already made a start here, but what you can see is inside you've got this surround that goes around each of the panels. It's the same on the back windows as well. And you can use the hole cutter, get right into the corner here. You can use a bigger one if you want, and cut a little hole in each of the corners. On this support panel, just put a steel ruler up here, scribe a line here, and then what I'm going to do, you can use various tools. You can use an angle grinder with a thin cutting disc. You can use a reciprocating saw or one of those, fancy tools. I tend to use a grinder. I'll grind straight along here with a nice thin disc, and then just use a reciprocator or jigsaw with a good blade just around here. Make it nice and neat so you've got no jagged edges. And then we can put some trim on like we've got on this one, but we'll get to that in a moment. So inside you can see I've done these little cuts here. They're like guide cuts, so that outside I can see where I need to do, and I don't have to be stuck in the van cutting in a confined space. I can then go and mark it up outside and cut it, so I'm not stuck in here. We've still got to cut these, so I'm just going to run a disc cutter straight along here, and then we can go outside. So I've cut the corners out with a reciprocating saw. You can use a jigsaw. If you're worried, you can even use just a hacksaw, if you don't like power tools too much. So I've cut these two out. I'm going to come onto this side, but it's worth noting sort of safety and considerations. Make sure you've got this either taped up or someone holding it, because obviously once you cut this, it's going to fall out. You want to make sure it's not going to fall on the bottom of your paintwork here. So I'm going to either get my friend here to come and hold it, or I'm going to tape it up so it doesn't fall anywhere. And you might have seen I've masked up and covered all the bottom of the outside paintwork so that any grindings don't go onto the paint. It's worth noting that when you take this out, obviously there's going to be sharp edges. Just make sure you wear gloves and you're being sensible. So we've cut the hole out. Removed the panel quite nicely. We've obviously got some jagged edges all around the bits here, so I'm going to run a little grinder around it, clean it all up, make sure there's no sharp edges, and then we're going to use some primer on them to stop it ever getting rusty, and then we're going to put some trim on. So shake up your primer, get this, stick it on the top, tip it upside down so you've got lots of primer on it, and you come over, and then where you've got the silver bits here, you primer it all up so that all the silver goes and both sides get covered in black primer. Take your U-channel, and we're going to start putting it around here. Helps to bend it over on itself, which opens up the channel, allowing it to go onto the metal easier. Make sure you get it right up into the corner, and again, just rub a mallet into the corner, and then continue down the side and all the way around until you reach the other end. We've put our join up in a sort of inconspicuous area. Next, what we're going to do is run some more of the primer up around this edge, all the way around, and that's going to give the window glass glue something to bed onto. Next up, get your primer and your little brush. We're going to dab it in here, and you can see there's a gloss section of the window and a matte section. We're going to run a bead of this primer around on the matte section, making sure not to go over onto the gloss, because obviously that's the visible bit of the window. And we're going to run the primer all the way around here. Give it a good shake first. Get some on the dabber. And then we can and this primer will then line up roughly with the primer you've put on the van around the opening, and it will give the bonding material a nice substrate to stick to. So I've done a double line all the way around there. So in your pack you'll have one of these. You've got to peel this metal bit off, puncture the film at the end, stick it in your gun. It comes with these nozzles. I always just cut that bit off, but you can see there's a V here, and essentially what you do is you put the sealant on with the V facing the opposite way to what you're doing, and it leaves like a triangular peak, so that when your window presses down, that then squashes out and gives a nice contact patch. So once you put the sealant all around the outside of the window, get yourself some strips of low tack tape, loop them up so that they're long enough to come down onto the glass, and just tuck them up out the way. That one's a bit low. Tuck that up out the way so it's not hanging over here, and then we can place our glass on here, make sure it's all bedded in, and then pull the tape down and let it set. Get your glass. I like to get it right in at the top and in this corner here, and then drop it in place like so. Make sure it's fitting nicely around all the edges. A bit high there. There we go. And give it a good push all the way along so that the nice V shape of sealant you put on washes down and makes good contact. Make sure you've got a nice line along the door here, and once you're happy, drop your tape down, make sure it's nice and tight, and final quick push down, make sure it's nicely bedded. Check all your gaps, make sure you're happy with them, and when we do the second one we've got to make sure it lines up nicely, but I'm happy with that one there.